main project for my October trip wound up being an easily accessible outhouse at the bottom of the hill. We'd been using a bucket toilet up the hill in the shack that we'd renovated for the last year, and while it worked, it was kind of inconvenient. It's a hike up 10 flights of stairs to go to the bathroom, which, when it's an urgent need, is not really the ideal situation. Even as fancy as it is, you're still pooping into a bucket. It is not the most convenient method of getting rid of human waste. So my brother and his fiancée had the idea that we should have a box at the bottom of the hill. The original plan was to have a pit with a simple box, toilet seat, and a lid that would cover the whole thing to keep it weather tight when we weren't using it. As you can see, that quickly escalated into a full-on outhouse. A friend of mine from college had recently retired and purchased a sawmill, and after watching a few of my project videos, asked me if I wanted some of the spruce lumber that he had kicking around. This was mostly 2x4s and a few odd width boards, but I was happy to accept that, as free lumber is free lumber. Now this is untreated spruce, so I purchased a gallon of Thompson's water seal, and all of the boards that you see that are not pressure treated in this project have been thoroughly coated with Thompson's water seal to keep the water out and to prevent against rot. I tried not to use any of the spruce as ground contact, so everything that touches the ground that's structural is going to be made out of pressure treated lumber, as I had several 2x4s, a 12-foot 6x6, and some odds and ends left over from the various deck and shower builds. The basic structure is comprised of these 6-foot 6x6s. I split the 12-foot 6x6 in half and then used that as a series of runners. If this ever needs to be moved, eventually the pit, which is below the outhouse, may start to fill up and this will need to be shifted. This entire thing rests on these runners and is not directly tied into the ground. So it can be dragged to another position, the hole backfilled, and a new hole dug. But based on the number of people that utilize the property, that's not going to be for a good long time. So there are ground contact 6x6s with 2x4 cross ties, as well as a few spruce cross ties. These don't touch the ground and again have been coated with Thompson's water seal. The structural support posts are a sandwich of spruce and pressure treated lumber. On the outside is the pressure treated, which goes all the way down to the ground and overlaps the 6x6, and then the spruce sits on top of the board to provide additional downward force support. 2x3s from my friend's mill were used to create the roof structure, as well as much of the interior framing and bracing. We used an auger, a shovel, an old coffee can, and a lot of back-breaking labor to dig a pit 5 feet deep below the structure. So these 6x6s straddle that pit. In between the area where the shelf sits, or the commode sits, is framework designed to hold this bucket. This is a 7-gallon bucket with the bottom cut off. I'm not sure whether this was a great idea, and it's normally not part of outhouses, but it seemed to me that having that in there would provide an easily cleanable chute should you have any kind of messy issues, or prevent against splashback inside this closed cabinet. Later, I'll come back and enclose the inside of the cabinet with pressure treated plywood. I had several partial sheets of pressure treated plywood left over from the shack build, and that allowed me to box this entire area in. That's to keep out critters in case there's any kind of small gaps, as well as to enclose the gas. Human waste produces methane gas. I will include, as you'll see later, a vent pipe that will go up through the roof and stand up above the peak of the roof. And that will act just like a chimney to create a draft, to pull any sewer gases from the hole. But in order to contain them as much as possible, I boxed the entire cabinet in with pressure-treated plywood and then wrapped the interior of that and stapled in some 10 mil plastic as an extra barrier. The 10 mil plastic drops down into the pit to provide, again, extra protection against waste or anything hitting any of the wooden parts. So this should be relatively clean, and I can tell you through using it, it worked very well. All of the gas is contained inside the cabinet and then vented out through the vent stack that you'll later see. This project originally was designed to be a personal project for my brother and I, and so the early stages of the outhouse build are not recorded. If you are interested, there's many other very good videos out there about how to design an outhouse. I think I've covered the basics of the changes that I made to a basic design. But as I found, my friend Jeff was able to provide me with all of the rest of the wood that I needed to complete this outhouse. I've said this in other videos, I would not be able to accomplish everything that I do without the help of my friends and my family. So thank you again to all of you that are watching that have pitched in or even just provided emotional support on this journey, as it's a lot of work. As I started to clean up the boards that Jeff provided, I realized that this was going to be something special. So I had to start recording it. So you'll see about halfway through the build, once the platform is set, I start recording the actual process of building my cherry outhouse. Hey guys, just a real quick update. We've been working on I mean me and Matt, and helps from friends, have been working on a project. I'm not recording that one. It was just for us. I will show you the end result. My hair is just insane right now, so it's going to be like that. I'll show you the end result when we're finished, but I started cleaning up the boards that I'm going to use for the floor. My friend Jeffrey Joswick, old college buddy of mine, has retired. Congrats, Jeff. I wish I was there with you. But he purchased a sawmill, and he said, hey, I got some boards laying around that I'm not using for a project. What do you need? And I said, oh, I need some wall boards and some floorboards. And he's like, okay. And so he brought me up a load of cherry for my outhouse in the middle of the woods. But you have to see these boards. So I have one cleaned up. I'm going to show you the one I'm working on right now. And then I'll film finishing it up as I clean it up. These are floorboards, so they're not going to be perfectly straight. They're really, there's a little bit of a twist in them. That they've been drying for about a year now, a little over a year, 13 months. But the difference from where they start as they came off the mill and they dried to where they end up once you put a little bit of effort into them is amazing. So I will show you the before and the after, so hold on. So this is the dried board. It's cherry. It looks nice, just as it is. This is rough sawn, not rough sawn, it's off of a bandsaw mill. And this one's actually really nice, doesn't have a lot of bandsaw marks on it. When the cherry dries, you can see it takes on this silver patina. So this is the natural color if it's exposed to air for a while without any oil or anything. These lighter bands that you see are the sticker marks. So when you're drying wood like this, you have normally 1 inch, this looks like 1.5 inch stickers. They're square thin pieces of wood that go in between the piles of boards. So there'll be a layer of boards, there'll be a stickers down the board. This one he did 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 in this 10 or 12 foot length. Then you do your next layer, then you do your next layer of sticker, and you just pack it up, stack it up like that, and you let the wind blow through the stack, and it air dries the stack. You'll get some checking, which are these cracks here on the end. That's just natural trees. In case you don't know, a lot of you already do, but trees are basically like big straws. And that's why you see the leaves turn brown in the fall, because all the water and nutrients are falling out of the tree into the root system, which is safer from the cold in the winter. And then in the spring, all of that water runs back up those tubes into the buds, and that's what helps to grow the leaves. And so the problem is, as wood dries, it doesn't dry as much out the face or the side as it does at the bottom. So this part of the board dries faster than the rest of the board. So you get this checking. It's cracking. As this dries, the bundles of fibers shrink and they pull apart, and you get checks. So I'll have to cut the end of the board off, probably to about here, so that I can get past that checking, but then the rest of it's solid wood. So let's take a look. This is the inside of the pile. So it's a little bit nicer. You still retain the color of the cherry wood. And then you can see here's the sticker mark from the next line, and there's a sticker mark up there. So there's a sticker mark up here as well. But I sanded the rest of it. So this is what it looks like when you sand out all of the top surface and take it down to the raw wood. And that looks really nice, but you really can't see the grain until you bring it out. This is just water. So I'm going to bring out the grain here. And you get to see what the floor of my outhouse is going to look like. Pretty nice, right? That's not too shabby for a place where you poop in the woods. Takes some work. It took me about 40 minutes to take it from that to this. But, you know, this 12-foot board is going to cover maybe a quarter of the floor, maybe a little bit more. So with a few of these, and I've got a pile of them over there, I'll be able to cover the floor, the bench, and then probably build some shelves inside. So coming out really nice. I'll give you one last look at the wood grain here. Okay, so you can see in that small amount of time, for you it was probably much quicker. I'm going to speed this up. But I was able to sand this side as well as the sides of the board. I'm not sanding the bottom of the board. The reason is that's going to be down. You're not going to see it. Again, when I'm putting boards on, I'm looking at the actual grain pattern. There's going to be a natural cup in a board where the tree rings grow. They grow in circles, and so that cup I'm going to put down, and that allows it's going to swell, and when it swells, that cup will naturally round up. That will allow the water to shed off. We talked about this in the shower video. Um, so because this is down and it already has this natural patina, this will actually help it, give it a little rot resistance. It's hard. It's cherry, so it's a hard wood. And I didn't sand past this crack, this knot, because as you can see, it's a sizable knot there. And there's that check that we talked about where the board is cracked. So I'm going to cut it back to probably here. I'll lose a little bit. Might turn it into a shelf. Honestly, it's probably going to go in the fireplace. But that's one more board down. Now I talked a little bit about the Cubitron sandpaper when I did the kitchen, and I am not in any way paid by 3M for this, but I've got to tell you, I just sanded 2 complete cherry boards, the same size as this one. It's probably 10 or 12 feet long, and I sanded out most of the saw marks. You can still see some of them. So these little dark lines that you see in here are saw marks. That's from the bandsaw mill as it saws through it. The saw blade runs on a loop, and so it will leave these marks in there. I want to leave some of those in there. This is not Home Depot wood. This is not from Lowe's. This is a friend of mine went and found a cherry tree that somebody had. He dragged it back to his place, and it probably weighed 2,000 pounds. He loaded it up on a sawmill and he cut this, and then he was nice enough to bring it to me. So I'm leaving some of these natural marks in the wood because that's a reminder that this is a gift from a friend. This whole place I would not be able to do as much as I've done without help from my brother Matt, his fiancee Rhonda, and all of my friends, including Doug Quinn, local guy. I went to college with him, and he's been super gracious helping me out, hanging out, coming up and bringing beer. Thanks, Doug. That is always appreciated. And, you know, lending a hand on a project. And I have tried to lend a hand with him and with others around here. And that's how this stuff gets done. You know, I put my blood and sweat into this, but my friends have as well. And so it makes it a home for all of us. And I know that sounds sappy, but it's just the way I feel. All right, back to the sandpaper. I'm sorry, I went off on a rant there. So this Cubitron sandpaper, I did 2 of these boards. I've got another 10 to do. It's going to be a long slog, but I will have a wonderful floor when it's done. But look at this. This thing has gone through cherry, which is a hardwood. Not the hardest of woods, but it's up there. It's pretty hard wood. I've done both sides and the tops of 2 12-foot boards. And this is the sandpaper. I use this one piece. There's no sawdust debris. It has not lost any of its grit. It's expensive sandpaper compared to like the cheap stuff you can buy at Harbor Freight. But trust me, when you buy this sandpaper, it will last you forever. Buy it and throw it on a shelf if you see it on sale. Because if you do any kind of woodworking, this is going to save your life. I hate sanding. Everybody that does woodworking hates sanding. And the silicate material that they use for the cubes and the fact that it extracts the dust makes it last so much longer and sand so much faster. It's crazy. It sands a board in half the time it would take a normal piece of sandpaper. So just trust me on this one. If you have a chance, it's called 3M Cubitron. They have a couple of different versions of it. They have this version, which is the solid paper. And then they have this version, and you can probably see the light through it, which is the mesh backing. Both of them do an excellent job of extracting dust. Just because the dust flows right through it. This one I use to sand down the insides of all of the boards that I put around the outhouse, and you'll see those later. And it's still perfectly fine. I could reuse this. I wanted that one because it's got more cutting surface. This one has slightly less cutting surface just because of the mesh grid. So it doesn't cut as fast as the solid one. Both of them do fine. This one is still a fully usable piece of sandpaper. I'll set it aside and I'll use it for something where it's a smaller piece where I don't mind if it takes a little while. But I'm going to get on with sanding these boards, and then I'll show you guys the finished result once I get the outhouse built. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you the outhouse build. It was kind of a personal project for my brother and his fiance who live here in New York, and they use the property, and I'm so grateful that somebody's using this place when I'm not here. And it's just to make it easier. I love the idea of having the bucket toilet where there's no waste and you can just dispose of it in a bag. But the reality of the bucket toilet is you have to dispose of it in a bag, which means the poop becomes somebody else's problem, which is just kind of rude. It does work. They're Mylar bags that wrap around plastic bags, so they're not like exploding at the dump or anything like that, but you still have to pack them up, put them inside of another bag, drive them to the dump, because I don't have curbside service here. I go to a landfill, and you have to dispose of that stuff. And then, you know, it's out there in nature where other people will have to deal with it eventually. There's a long-standing tradition of outhouses in the Adirondack Park. The Adirondack Park Service does outhouses. This one is very well designed, as my friends have told me. It's over-engineered, like everything else I've been doing. But it is very well designed, and it follows the guidelines that the Adirondack Park Service utilizes when they're doing theirs, and also that are used in all of the world, as far as the size of the cat hole, the depth of the pit, the structure around it, and so on and so forth. I'll cover the details of that when I do the walkthrough of the outhouse so that you can see exactly how I built it. But I'm not filming it. I'm not filming it because it's a personal project, and I'm going to have friends coming back and forth, and I don't know if they want to be videoed or not. So this one's just for me. I'll bring you guys along for parts of the process, and I just had to show you these boards. They're so beautiful. And once again, thank you to Jeff Joswick. This is beautiful lumber. I'm going to be happy to have it as part of my building. I'm going to get back to work, and I'll see you guys later. Somebody asked me about the gear that I use for filming this. It's really simple. I've got an iPhone 12, not a Pro, just a regular iPhone 12. And I did invest in a used gimbal. It's from DJI, the same guys that make the drones, and it's, I don't remember the model number. It's the Model 5. They came out with a Model 6, and I was able to pick it up for about half price on Amazon. I don't know what you're looking at, probably my belly button. So really that's the only heavy equipment, any filming equipment that I have. I do have a couple of microphones. They're little lapel mics. They're Bluetooth, and they've got an adapter that plugs directly into the iPhone Fire port. And I don't wear them most of the time. I don't have a good way of hiding them. They're kind of bulky, and honestly, I think the sound on the phone itself is pretty good. I can adjust it in the software, so hopefully you guys like the sound quality. If not, let me know. I'm almost trying to make these videos better. I haven't showed you guys most of this project. I'm finishing up the back wall, so I've got a bunch of these boards to cut. I ran out of cherry wall boards, and so I'm using this. I think it's either spruce or birch, I'm not sure. But it's a light material, which should help because it should reflect light back inside. I've got a tin roof going on, which you'll see later, and that's going to make it a little bit dark. It's an open air potty, so there will not be a door for now. I will frame around it with some nice cherry as well as the bench. But this should help to lighten up the inside and reflect some of the light coming in from the front. So I'm going to get to cutting this down. It's about 48 inches by 48 inches with a 2-foot deck, I guess you would call it, on the front of it. But you'll see that in the final reveal. think I'm going to need about 4 of these boards. I am overlapping them, but we'll find out very shortly here. This is a little pocket-sized sharpening stone that I picked up on Amazon. If I can think of it, I'll put the link in the description. It's really handy. It's got a carbide blades here at the end that are designed for taking big nicks out and cleaning up a really rough blade. And then when you get it to the point where it's pretty clean of nicks and damage, then there's a diamond honing stone on here, and it fits right in your pocket. Now I went a little overboard and I contact cemented a piece of leather to the back of it that I loaded up with polishing compound. So it's a little diamond stone on one side and a strop on the other. So I can actually get a really sharp edge with just this thing. I don't have the holder on me, but there's a holder that like clips onto your belt that it fits right there. So you never have to be without a way of sharpening your knife. So I will definitely try and put it in there, because this thing, I want to say it was $15. It wasn't expensive, and it's worth every penny, and it's heavy. It's aluminum. So it's all bonded really tightly, and with that piece of leather on the back, it makes an amazing sharpening system. I'm just going to touch up the edge on this knife. I'm probably doing overkill here. I'm going to add some screen to this. Ventilation in an outhouse is essential. I mean, the whole front of it's going to be open for now, but I'm thinking that if I'm here in colder months, it was 34 degrees last night, but if I'm here, late October, early November, and my house isn't built yet, then I might want something where I'm out of the weather. So I might wind up adapting this and putting a door on it. And then you kind of want cross ventilation. That's it. It's razor sharp again, just from that little work. So you kind of want cross ventilation. I'll have probably a half moon in the door if I put one on, typical for any outhouse. But then in the back you need something. So I'm going to staple some screen here. I probably don't need it. I'll likely cover most of it up with this next board, and then I'll just leave the top open. But that way, if I do want to close it up later, that work is all done and I don't have to go back and do this. You can see I'm only putting in 2 screws here, and I'm overlapping the boards. That's really all it needs. It's not taking a heavy snow load, it's in the woods. This is plenty of coverage to keep the weather out. If you're wondering why I'm putting screen up, even though there's an open door in the front, it may not be an open door forever, and this is going to cover all the bases, so I don't have to tear it apart later. All right, let me get back to work. I've loafed enough. I could measure this beforehand and then staple it after I cut it, but honestly, I just need to get it so that I can stretch it tight on here. This way I get the exact measurement. It's kind of a little bit of a lazy way of doing it, but I struggled getting the sizing right on the windows in the shack when I was screening it in. And so I don't want to mess with that anymore. I'm literally just going to cut it to the shape of the outhouse. I'm just going to tack some staples in here. Do a variety of angles this way and this way, just to make sure that it doesn't stretch that on this cover. I'm just going to go down the top of this board here. I'm going to try and pull it tight without ripping it, which is the trick. You kind of want to work your way along with this stuff. It'll stretch a little bit, and then once you get it stretched, tack it in a couple of places. And I'm going to tack it to the top of this board as well. And the reason is I want no critters, spiders, bugs. I mean, they're going to go in the front anyway, but if this is an enclosed space and there's a hole in the door for ventilation, that'll also be covered with screen. So I want to make sure that if we do wind up closing it in, that it's fully enclosed. So again, for this stage of the game where it's going to have no door on the front of it, this is overkill. I'm going to cut it at this point. Well, I sharpened my knife, by the way. I'm just running it right along the edge of the board, and it should give me a good clean cut. That's good enough for now. Now I want to cut down this side. More staple it there. Sorry, you're looking at my back for most of this, but I'll describe what I'm doing. I'm just running the blade along the edge of the wood. I screwed up right here. I wanted to staple it before I cut it further because I want the overlap. So I almost messed up here. I'm just putting a couple of extra staples in to make sure it doesn't move. Okay. So we'll get this as tight as we can. And I've never built an outhouse before. I've looked at designs online. I've tried to understand the principles. There's an international foundation that essentially helps third world countries build sanitation facilities. So I researched into that as far as what the guidelines that they follow. And again, probably overkill considering the number of people that'll be using this. It's not like a village facility. It's a little outhouse in the woods that might be used by at most 5 or 6 people at any given time. But it's the same principle as everything else I try to build around here. I'm doing it to the best of my ability because I want it to last. All right, so I am done with the screening. I'm going to put the last piece of board on. That should come down to lap over the top of this screw here and that screw there. And And then I'm going to leave, I'll probably have 4 inches or so at the top. I'm just going to leave it open. I may come back in and trim this out if I have any leftover, because I don't like the look of the raw screen here. So I may have to maybe cut a little piece of cherry trim to go over that. But yeah, let's get back to work. Anyway, let me know in the comments whether you think I should leave this raw wood and let it naturally age, or whether I should put a coat of that dark green paint on it. I can go either way. The dark green paint would help to marry these two disparate types of wood together, because it'll all be covered up, so you wouldn't know, but you also wouldn't get to see the patina of the cherry, and most of the sides are cherry. I just ran out of those boards. So this is fine. I may tack, because this is the top one, I'm going to put one more screw right here in the middle. Again, not structural, it's not holding weight or anything like that. I just want to make sure that that top one is especially secured, because any water that comes down is going to run down off of that. That's why I'm lapping these over, so that it eventually drops down, and that keeps water from seeping in cracks and stuff like that. I wasn't able to do it on the entire side, but where I can, I did. Okay, let's talk about outhouse design for a minute. So the key to a good outhouse, as far as I can tell, is ventilation, and also depth of the pit. You want to make sure that the pit's nice and deep, so that you have plenty of time. They eventually will fill up. If you drop wood chips, as long as they're not cedar, any kind of compostable wood chip, or lime, which is what's commonly used here in the Adirondack Park, including by the Adirondack Park Association. If you lime your pit, it will speed the decomposition of your poo and make it break down faster. So you can see there's some, it's not exactly square. I did not do a great job on this, but I worked with what I had. The pipe is for ventilation. So let's start from the bottom up. We have a pit down here that is, as I said, around 5 feet deep. I don't know if you can see down there. It's fresh, has not been used yet, except for Matt, of course, had to take a leak in it, and then I dropped my drill into the hole. So that was not pleasant. I have added a bucket to the framework here. I don't know if this is going to help or hurt. I've heard both ways, but the idea behind it is it gives you something that's easily washable. Should you have a splatter situation, I guess is the best way to describe it. I can bring a bucket of hot water, a hose or something out here, and just hose it off. The stuff that is touching the ground and ground contact is all pressure treated. You can see some PT there at the bottom. That's just framework around the bucket, again, to enclose the space and to frame out the flooring. I also used some PT plywood to enclose the entire hole here. That's 1/2-inch PT plywood, and that goes around both sides here for 2 reasons. Number one, that plus this sheet plastic that I've stapled in place all the way around keeps the vent gases under the bench or inside the bench, and then those are directed to this pipe, which basically just projects just about 1/4 of an inch below the bench top and then vents up. And this works just like a chimney on a wood stove or a fireplace. If it's taller than the roof, the wind blowing across it will create a negative air pressure, which will suck any gases from inside the outhouse out. I probably should move that bucket up closer so that it encloses the space. I'm going to see how it works there before I have to tear this whole thing apart. As you can see, this is beautiful cherry. Thank you, Jeff Joswick, once again. This is something that a friend of mine made and then gifted me, which just makes it all that more special. So I have this entire thing actually was constructed with just about the entire thing with cherry. So the sides are cherry, the shelves are cherry offcuts, the bench is cherry. I've got a couple of different. I've got mostly this deep red cherry, but then I've got one piece that's a lighter cherry. It looks almost like an oak, but it's not. I could tell when I was sanding it that it's definitely cherry. So because of the coloring, I'm going to try and do a frame around the front of the box here with the red, darker wood around the edges, and then the lighter wood as paneling inside, and see how that looks. And then I've got some wider pieces to go on the end caps here to finish that out. And then I will put some stickers across here for some additional support across here and there, and then at the end. And then I have some sheet tin that used to cover an old spring that's up the hill. And the spring is in bad shape. It needs to be torn apart. That's going to be a project for another trip. But that sheet tin will go over the top to cover it up, and then that'll be the end. Now, you can see this is the raw cherry, and that's with just Thompson's water seal on it. The entire inside will get a coat of the Thompson's water seal just to protect the wood. But you can see the difference. Now, this I sanded down significantly more to get as many of the banding out as I could. Cover this so I don't drop anything else down there. But you can see what it looks like with some sealant on it. It is beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to getting this finished up. This was the little project that I was doing on the side where I fire hardened that piece of, I think it's poplar or maple. And then this is, again, just a little offcut. So this will be my toilet paper holder. And that's going to go right there for the teepee. And then over here, I've got a few shelves that'll hold some hand sanitizer and a roll of paper towels. I may put like a little paper towel holder type thing in here if I can figure it out. But yeah, I am almost done. All right, I'm down to the last few details. I'm filling in the front of the bench. I'm going to try doing stiles and rails like you see on cabinets. And then like the rails are going to be, the stiles and rails are going to be this redder cherry, and then the panel I have, it's a lighter version of the same wood. So a similar grain pattern, but just a little bit slightly different color. I'm going stupid over the top with this just because, you know, wood is special to me. And this is going to sound stupid, but this cherry tree probably took, 200 years to grow. 200 years of living in the world before I got cut down and turned into this stuff. So to just slap it up with a bunch of nails and not put care into what I'm making just seems, terrible. Like all of that time, all of that history to just get turned into something that's slapped together just seems like a waste. So I'm going a little overboard. You'll hopefully see that. But I'm going to route the edges of these to make them look like a true cabinet face. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to work, and I got to turn the generator on, so I'll play some music over it so you don't have to hear that. And then I'll show you the finished frame once I get these up. So we have top rail, rounded inner edge, side rails, and then the bottom rail. And the side rails, you can see I didn't route them all the way. I just routed them to the point where the top and the bottom rails meet it. So it should look like a cabinet door, and then it's going to have a lighter wood panel, not quite this light, but it'll have like a contrasting wood panel in the center of it. And the rest of it's just straight cuts. So I'm hoping this goes quickly, and I'll have this together and I'll show you the final product. The bench came together exactly as I wanted it to, and as I'd envisioned it. I think I successfully married the two different woods to make what looks like a shaker-style cabinet front on the bench, and then the offcuts made wonderful little shelves. A few coats of Thompson's water seal on the bench, and then really on the entire inside and out of the outhouse, and it was complete. So, this was not a project that I chose. It's my brother's idea, but I think it was a great idea, and it's worked out very well. Actually, I think it was Rhonda's idea, and Matt agreed with her because it was back. But just past the fire pit, we have our little woodland path. Now, this path is generally used by the guys. So we have this little step off here that allows you to pee over the side of the hill. Now that works great if you're a guy. Step up here, relatively shielded by the trees and the wilderness, and you just let fly. However, for the ladies, and if you have to do something other than pee, we now have this. Just a short walk from the pea shelf is the Poo Palace. This is an Adirondack outhouse that I built with the help of Matt and Jeff Joswick and some friends, but mostly me. Took my time on it. Jeff was nice enough to drop off a load of cherry, so as you can see, both the exterior and the interior is out of rough sawn cherry boards. Get some of the characteristic there of the wood. Now I've put several layers of Thompson's water seal and allowed it to soak in. It has been cool here, so it may not have completely soaked in to all the spots, but I waited a few days and let it dry out, and then re-soaked anything that looks like it needed it. All the end grain has gotten triple coats. Let's talk about the features here. It's on 6x6 pressure treated posts. We've got a 5-foot cat hole beneath the bench, which is also not another 24 or so inches, maybe 20 inches tall. I won't show it to you, but the hole is lined with a 7-gallon bucket with the bottom cut off for ease of cleaning. Get some nastiness in there, you can just spray it down and let it all fall down into the pit. On the back wall, I ran out of cedar boards and I had these spruce boards. So I coated both of those as well as the end grain inside and out with the Thompson's water seal, because spruce is not as durable a wood as the cherry. But we have a roughly 3-foot long cherry deck, nicely put together. That leads you into the box, which I did kind of like a rails and stiles cabinet design. There was one piece, probably 12 feet long, of oak, I think, and that's what that grain is in the center here. You can see it's a definitely different grain pattern than the rest of it. It's not quite as tight as the cherry, and it has more figuring in it. So that's oak, possibly red oak. And then the rest of this with the exception of the header, which is also made out of that red oak. The rest of this is cherry. I've got some pine 2x4s for framing and the pressure treated. The rest of this, including the shelves that you see here, as well as the part of the toilet paper holder. I think I have a little blurb on making this. The holder itself is poplar that I burned in a fire and then sanded back to make it look kind of like a deer antler. And then the cherry attachment. So that goes right there. We've got our lime for the pit. So once a week or when it starts to smell, we drop some lime down in. That helps the decomposition process to help the stuff degrade and decompose. We've got wet wipes here, just in case you need them. And then we have a little plastic container with a snap lid to hold the toilet paper so that the mice and squirrels don't make nests out of it. So the seat's not attached yet. Matt's bringing up a drill. And he needs to help me put the remainder of the roof on. That piece back there in that back corner is just resting there. I've got it cut properly. It fits good. We just need to unscrew some of the roof and slide it up so you get the proper step down so the water sheds. But that's it. Nice heavy duty facing on the front of it. I will put some images of this at night because I installed some nice solar lights to run around the entire thing. So all the way around the foot of it to light the entryway, all the way around the inside, all the way around the top. And then our solar panel is here, zip tied loosely to a tree. That way as the tree grows, we can just snip the zip ties and then reattach it with a little bit larger zip tie so we're not choking the tree out. And then I will probably put a rock across the bottom here where the line comes over just to keep people from tripping on it. But that is the, I don't know, poo shack. Matt wants to call it a poo shack because it's got a tin roof on it that does have rust on it. I think it's more of a poo palace. And it is beautiful. And it is right out in the woods. Oh, and when you're doing your business, this even rivals the shed. When you're doing your business, that's the view that you have. Not too shabby.